right. Good evening, Michigan City, Indiana. And thank you again. I just love these meetings, and just because of the good people that attend them and to be able to actually be part of the great progress that's been made in the city. So with that, we have a relatively short agenda this evening with only 24 items, and hopefully we'll be out of here by 6:30 or so. But I'm going to call the meeting to order. And Deb, if you would reflect that as far as attendees, all the commissioners are here, right, including our legal counsel and our executive director, Craig Phillips. Mr. Sirnick, we had an executive committee meeting prior to this. Any comments?
There was an executive session beforehand. No items were discussed that are not permitted by the open door law, and no decisions were made.
Thank you. So if you take a look at the minutes of the executive session on September 9th, the regular meeting on September 9th, the special meeting on September 9th, we had maybe that's a typo, I'm not sure.
That's the one we did, the September 9th one was when we did the bids.
Oh, the bids, okay, thank you, all right, because I was going to say, okay, 3 meetings on the 9th, and then an executive session on the 19th, then an executive session on the 25th, and a special meeting on the 25th, so take a look at the minutes. I'll entertain a motion. So if there's questions or comments.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Phillips, would you please go over the claims for October?
Okay, you should all have a claims docket in front of you dated October 7th, 2019. The first item you'll note is payroll, standard payroll items for September of 2019. Claims to the operating fund include claim to Alan Sirnick for monthly retainer for September 2019. Great American Financial for copier fees for September. Why does that say 0? Is this the placeholder? Oh, okay.
We didn't make any copies.
Well, I'm sure that's not the case, but corporate payment systems for reimbursement for my hotel fees for the Railvolution conference. Claims to the North TIF include payment to Action Fence for fencing at Friendship Botanic Gardens. August MAC for litigation regarding support for the Trail Creek Properties matter. Barnes & Thornburg for legal services in the North TIF. Butler Fairman and Cypher for costs related to Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 engineering and design. City Controller for reimbursement for invoices regarding 8th Street paving project. Haas and Associates for costs related to the Pine and 9th Street resurfacing project. Hitchcock Design Group for costs related to Pacific Plaza Phase 1 preliminary design services contract. John Doyle and Associates for several claims, including plat survey for property at 1215 East 2nd Street, the memorial site, construction observation regarding the memorial site, amendment to the contract with Doyle and Associates regarding the former Memorial Hospital site, and project administration and inspection fees related to that project as well. Michigan City Water Department for hydrant fees from December of 18 through August of 19 for our sites owned by the Redevelopment Commission. Neighborhood Capital Institute for costs related to the developer site selection for Memorial Hospital property. Blue Shadley, Racher, and Braun, 3 claims including costs related to the environmental cost recovery project, legal fees for property located within the North TIF, and ongoing fees related to the Trail Creek Properties litigation. That has to do with the contamination in the Trail Creek area and the plume, etc. PR's lawn care for various landscape maintenance costs in the North TIF for properties owned by the Redevelopment Commission. Alan Sirnick for legal services in the North TIF for September of 2019. Stanhope Consulting for Pacific Plaza outreach fees. The Ontario Group for site consulting fees regarding the Waste Incorporated site. Van Winkle Dayton for costs related to Michigan City versus Concord Begley
That was the
mediation.
mediation costs, yeah. They were the mediators.
Okay. Walker parking for costs related to updated parking study that was conducted for the Uptown Arts District area. Claims to the South TIF include payment to the city controller for reimbursement for invoices related to global engineering services for paving in the South TIF. DNF excavating for construction payout number 3 for the Bozak Honda expansion project. Global engineering for design and inspection fees related to Village Road reconstruction and Franklin Street repaving. Haas and Associates for costs related to the Ameriplex Drive constructions project. Larson Danielson for fees incurred as part of the Bozak Honda expansion project. PR's lawn care for landscape maintenance for various properties owned by the Redevelopment Commission in the South TIF. Alan Cyranick for legal services in the South TIF for September of 2019. There were no claims to the Ohio Street Construction Fund. There were no claims to the Wabash Street Fund and no claims to the Northeast TIF Fund.
All right, any questions or comments relative to the claims docket?
I have a comment. I can either address this now or I can address this later on in my portion, but you'll note that the August MAC claim for $29,078.84 is, we've not approved that much money for them yet, and I can explain that now or I can explain that later. But obviously you will approve the claims docket. I would say approve the claims docket and address August MAC because you've got a decision to make it that later on during this meeting.
Okay, so approve now, but then reconfirm at your review. Is that it?
Well, or just confirm everything within the claims docket except for August MAC, and then we'll vote on that one separately later on during the meeting.
Well, okay. I mean, we usually do these contingent upon.
Whatever you want to do.
That's still contingent upon, let's do the approval contingent upon your support.
Contingent upon further things because you'll do something illegal because you're going to approve money that you don't have. You haven't approved yet.
So it's clear, and that's why it's in red on this. Okay, so we need to approve that item contingent upon approval in the later meeting.
That could be fine, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments on the claims? I have one. My suggestion is either in November or December that we have Antero Group come and give us a little update on the Waste Inc. site. So,
I think that's, I can ask for that, and we're pretty much wrapping up their work with us on that because I believe we're pretty much wrapped up the negotiations with the EPA and IDEM on the construction and design related to the Sing Sands Trail Phase 2 project across the site, which was primarily what they were involved with us. So I can reach out to Derek Nagy and ask him to do this.
yeah, I think it would be good because, it's kind of been on the claims docket pretty much almost every month. And so
it's been the little trickle of
right.
meetings.
I'd just like to keep
EPA and all
everybody
that,
up to speed where we're spending our money, so.
Yep.
All right, that'd be good. All right, any other comments or questions on the claims docket? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded, and that's with Mr. Cernick's exception, right? Okay. Other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Let's go on to the financial report for August 31st.
All right, you should have the balance sheet in front of you dated August 31st, 2019. First item, first category is cash. The operating account currently stands at a balance of $239,388.08. Southside TIF account currently carries a balance of $13,288,851.86. That number will drastically change when we pay the double track,
right?
Cash portion of the double track commitment. So that'll drop
At least $5 million,
substantially.
right?
Yeah. Southside TIF debt reserve account.
I'm sorry, 7 million.
Yeah, Southside TIF debt reserve account carries a balance of $336,300.59. That's an account associated with the Ohio Street project, as is the Southside TIF capital account, which has a balance of $17,641.78. The North TIF account has a balance of $3,460,307.62. Wabash Street Streetscape Construction account has a balance of $122,327.05. The Wabash Street Streetscape Debt Reserve account has a balance of $216,062.18. Those two accounts will likely, the remainder of those two accounts will eventually, once we finalize the process of closing out the final paperwork on the Wabash Street project, will both be put towards the initial payments for the Wabash bond. And those will likely be dissolved as a part of that process. Northeast TIF account has a balance, the Northeast TIF account has a balance of $123,949.01, bringing our total cash on hand to $17,804,828.17. Loans receivable include a loan to the East Side TIF from the operating account of $21,028.49, and the county business loan fund currently, our portion of that fund is $133,333, bringing our total loans receivable to $154,361.49, which brings our total assets to $17,959,189.66.
All right, any questions on the financial report? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved to second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6, the facade program. Mr. York, and I have Anastasia here also.
Everyone here is okay? Good morning, or good afternoon, board.
Anastasia, I'm okay if you have that over there so everybody can see. So
Okay, I didn't know if it
Yeah, I
needed to be.
think
No,
it'd be nice for the public to be able to see it too.
Sorry, Anastasia. So we're here tonight. I've got a facade grant for 113 York Street. You might recognize this as there's a few buildings over near Zorn Brewery. This is one of the it was part of the old storage area for Zorn when it was originally built. There we go. So you probably recognize it. Uh-oh, he's broke it.
Now you started something.
Okay. So I've asked Anastasia to give you guys an overview because I think this is a little bit more, this is an exciting project. It's been a long time coming, I think, for this building to see it get redeveloped and reused. I know it's been thought about many times, and I've probably talked to 3 or 4 people about it in my time here. So they have put something together, and I would like for Anastasia to kind of give you an overview of it. So,
Great, thank you. Anastasia Prado with Blue Harbor, 111 Franklin Street. So first, I'd like to just say thank you to the city and to the commission for creating opportunities like this in the facade grant program and also in the upper story program for building owners and also investors that are looking to invest in Michigan City. Having some incentive is really important, especially some of these older buildings that we'll be talking about today. And so earlier this year, the program boundaries were expanded to include Elston Grove neighborhood. Previous to that, it was just concentrated to the downtown. I think it was a historic.
The Arts District, basically.
It was a core area.
Pine, Washington, right?
Pine to Wabash and 11 Forest.
Right. After we purchased this building after those boundaries were expanded, and so this building is built in the 1870s. It's about 10,000 square feet. It's part of the original Zorn Brewery complex. This is the building that's facing York Street, so it's a smaller building across from the large vacant building across from Zorn Brewery. A couple of things, and what I'd like to do is, I think everybody has a copy of this package, which is what we presented to the historic board. So since we purchased on the property, we have gone in front of the historic board with a building scope for exterior approval. They have since given us a COA on what I'm going to be discussing tonight that's part of this scope. And so I'm just going to actually just walk you through this and then talk through what we're doing on the building and then what the budget is. So as you can see, this is the east elevation. This is the front of the building that's facing York. On the main first floor, there's about 6,000 square feet. There's a variance on this building that already is approved for commercial on the first floor and 3 residential units up top. So we're not asking for any variance requests. We're keeping the uses as is. And so we'd be building out about 6,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor and 3 quite large residential units up top, about 1,100 square feet on average. And so this tonight is just about facade grant. We're in the process of working on our final plans for the design of the interior and planning to be back in front of the commission hopefully in the next month or so on upper story grant as well. And so the first page, called Improvement Summary, shows the scope of work that we're proposing to do the building. Now, some of these items that I'm going to talk about are not eligible expenses for the grant, and we have not included those in our cost estimates, but they are still items that we're going to be doing. So we actually have another window we found. So we have 47 windows that will be replacing. All of the windows that are in existence will be replaced for this building. We're going to have some new entry doors, a new glass garage door. We're tuck pointing the entire south and east elevation and the entire chimney, and also tuck pointing the west and north elevation. We're repairing bricks where necessary with similar color and style as the original building. We're adding a secondary front entry, which I'll show you in a minute here. And then we're going to have our dumpster in a rear parking lot with enclosed wood fence. And then we're adding a brand new roof on the first floor and also repairing the roof on the second floor. It's about 12 years old. And on the third page, you'll see window material. So this was all approved by the historic board. This is going to be a Marvin Ultrex fiberglass window in a dark finish. So on here, you'll see a picture of the Zorn Brewery. So our thought was that we want to complement the existing architecture that Zorn's done. They've done a tremendous job keeping the integrity of the building with a new finish with the window colors. So this will very much match what they've done there. Flipping over to the proposed south elevation. So this entire elevation will have new tuck painting. We're going to have new doors, a new entry door, and we'd like to do a new glass garage door at this location. And so all of the windows on this elevation will be replaced. And moving on to the east elevation, again, tuck pointing the entire facade and chimney. We have 7 windows here. If you look at the proposed plans, which are the black and white plans, we're proposing to open up another entrance door. So if you're at the building, you can see sort of an original archway that was part of the original design of the building. We're proposing to open that back up. And so what that allows to do is, so we have about 6,000 square feet. Part of the building is older, and so there's a brick structural wall that sort of divides the commercial space. So if you wanted to have office users, like a cool office user, they would have their own entrance as maybe the event space user. And it also just kind of brings the building back to life a little bit from where it was originally intended to be. I also on this page, I mean, the city has spent a significant amount of money in the Alston Grove neighborhood streetscape, and I think sort of the timeliness of us being here now is a result of the investment that you all have already done in this corridor. So this is all, you can see the cobblestone roads in the front elevation, which we really like that. And then the north elevation, you're going to see the second floor, there's all windows, all of those windows are being replaced. On the first floor, those are blocked. We're proposing to keep them blocked as is right now. Now, with that said, if a user comes in, a different user comes in and they want to open up those windows, they can have the opportunity to open them up. And then all of this, there's 8 windows in this elevation that we will be replacing. And then the west elevation, all the windows here as well, and tuck pointing where necessary. The final page shows the parking lot and where the new dumpster enclosure with the wood fence would be. And that would be in the rear lot. So you also have, I think, a copy of the floor plans. Since I'm only here for facade, I have not prepared the interior design specs and scope of work, but when we come back here for that grant, the upper story, we can talk about that as sort of the direction. Happy to also answer any questions that the commission may have, exterior or interior for that matter. And so we also have our construction estimate. So you guys have the 100, you guys have the smaller one.
Well, I have an older one.
Okay.
Yeah. He told me it went up a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. So when we submitted this package, we were at a total facade cost of eligible costs at $111,000. That's not including the dumpster. That's not including other uneligible items. That's just eligible items. And so we understand that there's a limit up to $30,000 for the facade grant. That's what we would be asking for. Since then, we apparently missed a window, and our masonry budget has increased. So we're actually at $120,000 in total facade improvements, although I still know that the cap doesn't change, but I just wanted to make the commission aware of that. I don't know if there's...
Wonderful. Well, before we get to questions, Skylar, you want to have any comments or anything?
I was just I can read this for you guys, and then you want to open it up for questions after that?
Let's do that. Please, yeah.
So this is for October 7th, this Redevelopment Commission. It's a facade grant request for approval for Blue Harbor, 113 York Street, care of Anastasia Fratto. Project description. The new owner of this building will be replacing the windows and doors as part of this renovation project. The building is a contributing building in the Elston Grove Historic District and was historically part of the Zorn Brewery, identified as number 140 in the LaPorte County Interim Report. Contributing buildings provide significant value to the historic fabric of a designated historic district. New windows and doors and an adaptive reuse will help preserve the integrity of the structure while maintaining a valuable asset within the Elston Grove Historic District. The Historic Review Board has already granted a certificate of appropriateness for this project on June 24th, 2019, COA 2018-022. Adaptive reuse of historic buildings helps preserve the integrity of the structure while allowing new non-invasive uses to be established and is highly encouraged as a means of preservation. The total cost at this time when it was submitted was $111,732. Amount to be paid by the owner was $81,070. I put it at $81,738 in yours. It should be $732. And the amount reimbursed by the Redevelopment Commission, they're asking for a $30,000, which is the max that we do per building. And then my little note down at the bottom is that this is about 27% of the total project cost or budget that was at the time.
Nice.
Just to show kind of the investment, the size of the investment that they are.
The facade program more or less was a 60% $50,000 project. Now we're putting 27% on $120,000 project.
Absolutely,
So,
it's
wonderful.
just showing kind of the investment size that
Good
these
stuff.
guys are making. So
Yeah.
then I'll open it up for questions if you.
Any questions or comments from the commission? All right, I'll add a couple since somebody else wants to. Number one, thank you for the request. It's great that the Redevelopment Commission has the opportunity to encourage investments like this to rebuild our community, because what I sense here, given the activity we've had over the last few years, without the incentive, we weren't getting the quality of investment that we wanted in the community. And so I think this is just absolutely wonderful and proves out the concept of our priming the pump, if you will, to put some money on the table to encourage exactly this type of work. So I don't know with that, any other comments from the commission? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
I suppose I would note that Blue Harbor is the ice cream part of the renovators, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're picking up all kinds of property in the
Yeah,
community, so that's
absolutely.
wonderful.
So
So,
I'm renovating.
And we're happy to see that that project is pretty much wrapped up at this point now, aside from just a couple of minor items. And
Yeah.
want to thank you guys for putting your money where your mouth is and getting that taken care of, so that project looks good at this point, so.
And as Anastasia alluded to, I think she will be back before you for upper story, and you'll get to see kind of more of a build out, if you will, interior wise. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. All right, next item, double track bond process. Andy Mauser?
Good evening, Andy Mauser with Baker Tilly. Just wanted to briefly, I guess, provide an update on the double track financing, and then if I could maybe just spend a few minutes also giving a quick update on the Lafayette Barker refunding. They are somewhat tied together at this point, so just kind of want to provide an update on both of those and the bank that's stepping up to purchase both bond issues. So if you recall, the Redevelopment Commission had previously hired Hilliard Lyons to serve as the underwriting firm on the Lafayette Barker refunding. On a refunding, it's very common to choose an underwriting firm up front and then work with that underwriter to negotiate those interest rates. Just with the refunding, to be able to have that direct feedback on interest rates and make sure there's sufficient savings before selling bonds. And so they had actually brought a bank to the table to purchase the refunding, and we had inquired about that same bank participating on the double track financing as well. And that same bank has stepped up and will be purchasing the double track bonds. So what you see here is based on the formal bid from the bank, actually same interest rates on both financings. So here I kind of wanted to walk through, I guess, in more detail what the double track financing would look like, but then just briefly at the end kind of give an update of what the refunding result will be as well. So the bank is locked in at this point. The Redevelopment Authority will be signing, I think, their final documents next week. And then the bank was very flexible. So we'll be closing on the 22nd, which I know is the deadline to get financing in place. And we'll be assisting with getting that wire lined up to the trustee bank and then back to, I believe it'll be a trust account held by the Indiana Finance Authority. So we'll be working through all that here in the next couple weeks. But just wanted to provide, I guess, an update on page 3, taking a look at the sources and uses of funding. Same general concept as what we've presented in the past, but again with final numbers here. So the $5,390,000 of bonds, and then actually a much smaller cash contribution than what you've seen previously will be needed. You can see right around $6.97 million, which will come from the Southside TIF fund from that $13.3 million that you currently have in that account. And the reason that's come down quite a bit, I think last time we had shown right around $7.7 million. So working with the bank is comfortable enough with the structure of the financing, the city's credit, that they did not require that debt service reserve fund that you would have on a typical open market bond issue. So that's around 1 year's payment, so about $700,000 that you don't have to fund up front, again, which helps reduce the costs overall. So another thing, I guess, with the bank, the various issuance costs that you'll see here, just with the bank financing as opposed to an open market bond issue, there's typically less disclosure, things like that. So some of the financing costs have come down as well. So again, still financing the full $12.2 million. That'll come from about $5.4 million from the bonds, and then just under $7 million from your Southside TIF. The next page then looks at the amortization schedule. Again, based on those rates that the bank is committed to. And again, when we had showed this previously, we had shown bonds repaid through 2039. And again, you would have used the money that you would have had in that reserve fund to pay the bonds off early, right around the 10-year mark. But with the lower interest rates and no need to fund that reserve, we were able to shorten the term of the bonds up. So you actually, based on the final structure, have them fully repaid in February of 2028. So you can see the interest rates range from 1.7% in the early maturities out to 2.05%. So your net interest rate right around 1.95% on the 9 or 10-year financing. And then you can see on the far right column, you'll have a small payment due this coming February, and then you'll have annual payments right around $700,000 going forward. So that's well within the $750 annual payment that was approved. It's just slightly higher, I think, than what we had shown before, but again, we're shortening the bonds into that 10-year term, and then reducing that cash contribution up front, and then reducing your February payment will actually help your cash flow out quite a bit. So I guess one other thing to point out was with the extended term that we had looked at before, your total interest would have been in the $800,000 to $900,000 range. Here, by shortening the term and with the lower rates from the bank, total interest right around $470,000. So
Plus, can we get out of the reserve piece of it?
Yeah.
So there was another, there's another 700,000 on top of that.
right, so
So
overall,
it's-
it's quite a reduction
Right.
in your
Yeah.
overall costs. So.
Great.
And then just quickly on page 5, again, taking a look at your overall Southside TIF situation, your annual TIF compared to your payments on your 2011 bonds, the 2015 bonds, the Ohio Street bonds from last year, and then the new double track bonds. You can see your coverage for the remaining distribution you'll get in December, very strong this year. And then while the bonds are outstanding, will remain in excess of 140%. So right in line with what we had looked at, still very strong coverage levels. And then the main difference here again is with no payments extending beyond 2027, that leaves you quite a bit of capacity in future years for future projects. So, and then just I guess quickly on page 6, I know since we do take a look at the cash flow as well, again freeing up your cash flow with that lower contribution up front. Even with the higher payments, it still allows you to complete those projects you have identified here in the next few years on the same time frame, and you could actually even possibly take on some additional projects or move some of those commitments up if you needed. So I think the moral of the story is it really gives you more flexibility moving forward from the estimated rates that we had shown. So that's a double track. I guess I'll pause, and if there's any questions on that, and then I can just give a brief update on the refunding as well.
Well, it's a great story because we were anticipating a interest rate of what, 3.5%?
Yeah.
Now this bank has set forward at not just a 1.95% rate, but also not having to have the debt reserve. So it's really a good financial decision for the city to move ahead with this project at the lower interest rate and the lower debt reserve, or the zero debt reserve, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so do we need to take any action specifically on this, or are we good? It's just
No.
more or less an update report, right?
Just
So-
an update, as I mentioned, we did give the bank verbal approval, so they are locked in, and then the redevelopment authority, as the actual issuer of the bonds, will be signing the purchase agreement next week, but I don't believe there's any action that would be required here tonight.
Any other comments from commissioners or not? So we already gave preliminary approval on proceeding with the bond, right?
Right, and I think at the higher level that Andy had first said to us, so
Yeah, so-
we don't need to approve this.
Right.
And that's all
So
within
it's
all the
great news, instead of
parameters.
coming back to us and asking us for more money, so thank you.
Right.
All right, well, we appreciate your good quality estimates for us on the front end, which we always take as conservative, just so that we do make good decisions here and don't promise less than we deliver, so. All right, want to go on to the other process project?
Sure. Just quickly on the refunding, and I didn't hand out any numbers, but I can just quickly talk through that. So the bank did commit to the exact same rates that you see on, I guess, what was it, page 4 here earlier. So the 1.7 to 2.05% net interest rate of 1.95. And then keeping your payments where they are on the 2010 Lafayette Barker bonds, and then applying the new interest rate. It'll help us reduce the final maturity of those bonds. We're actually able to knock off 5 years of repayment. So where you would have paid those
How
through
many years?
February, 5 full years.
5 full years of repayment
That's great.
because of the better interest rate and our decision to keep our annual payment the same as it was or is currently.
Because what was the, I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but what was the payout, the final payout date originally?
It would have been through February of 2033, and
So
that would
it's
be
now
February of
2028.
28.
Great.
Yep. So I think total gross savings, it saves you about $400,000 a year or more in those 5 years. So total gross savings is about 2.1 million, and then net present value, I think, still over $1 million. So
Right. So that's $2 million to reinvest in the community that we
Exactly.
didn't have, or didn't expect that anyway.
Right. Kind of going back to the double track, it's it's more capacity to do more things in the future.
We definitely have some
within your
exciting
north side
south side
area.
expenditures coming up, so
Yep. So this really gives you more capacity in both of your major TIF areas.
wonderful. But I don't think anybody expected to get a 2% or less interest rate, so this is very good. All right, any other comments or questions?
I'll just thank you for the good work,
Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
representing us well.
Thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing it to us, so
Absolutely.
wonderful. All right, so going on then, demolition on 355 US 20 update.
Yeah,
Greg, is
I
that you?
have a quick update on that. American Engineering, I just told them that they could forego appearing and giving us an update. So the demolition on 355 US Highway 20 was expected to begin today. If not, it will begin tomorrow morning, and likely because it's a residence, former residence, likely be complete by the end of this week.
Nice.
We currently have a contract with PR's Landscaping, so the property is going to be maintained. We'll obviously continue that next year, and so the project that project should wrap up pretty quickly, and we'll get another update from them probably at our November meeting.
I see the car wash nearby there has been announced too, which is
And, yeah,
tangential to the development.
They've done some land clearing associated with that as well, yeah.
Right.
So the purpose of this demolition, again, was to be able to ultimately be able to extend Ameriflex Drive to Meyer Drive. And this project gets us almost all the way to what we need to be able to do that.
Okay,
So,
no progress. All right, any questions on the demolition? All right, moving on to, what's another exciting project, the former Memorial Hospital site project update, John Doyle and Ruth Horma.
which one do you want first?
Let's go with John first, and we'll pick up the Ruth piece. And we'll go with age before beauty, so.
With beauty. John Doyle and Associates, and I have Mr. Bruce Woodruff with me today, and he is the contractor on the memorial site. We've been trying to get some concrete work done there on the storm trap slab or whatever you want to call it this year, and the subcontractor that Mr. Woodruff had refuses to or does not want to comply with our request. So I believe Mr. Woodruff has got someone else that we can do the work with in the amount of the 7.5% increase that. Hope so. So with that, if the board would like to proceed with the project, we need to know.
All right, so we probably need a little clarification then, right, Craig, relative to potential new development on the site or not?
The work that we're doing to basically cover up the remainder of the storm trap facility with the concrete cap is not going to have any impact on the, directly have any impact on the development proposals that we'll be receiving. So I think it's important for us to hope to direct Mr. Woodruff to hopefully pursue that option so that we can get that wrapped up, because obviously we're concerned about weather. Last year we were in the same position for getting the work that was done before, and the contractor did not perform, in my opinion, the way that they had presented to us. We actually even ended up paying extra for the work that was done because of the weather, and they didn't complete the task. And so I found it interesting that they chose not to honor the, the existing commitment with a 7% increase and turn that down, but that is what it is. So I think we should, I would recommend that we ask Mr. Woodruff to pursue that option and hopefully get this wrapped up. With the new contractor, and hopefully get that wrapped up yet this year, because I'd really like to get that off my plate.
New contractor or new subcontractor?
New subcontractor, sorry, new subcontractor.
And have we already approved though from the last time you were here, we're trying to do that, or was that going to be an add-on to finding out what kind of, okay. So what we need to do is we need to
The
improve the
additional
overall.
7% was approved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we approved that. That was the direction we sent Mr. Doyle.
That's what I was
Right.
asking you, so, okay.
So if we're okay with a new subcontractor, it's good to go. Do we need to take formal action then?
I think so.
It's his,
It's really
it's
Mr.
within his
Woodruff's,
contract.
it's Mr. Woodruff's determination to make.
So
yeah.
unless somebody else has something that
What
we
we can
different.
do, and I know that Mr. Doyle is waiting for me to do, is to issue a letter to that effect. What we'll do is we'll draft a letter memorializing this today, and that we have that for your records.
All right, the other question that Mr. Woodruff had was with regard to the 6th Street, trying to get that done. If the board would like to proceed with that project this year, and I'll let Mr. Woodruff address, there'll be some initial costs and so forth, but there are extra costs on that.
You guys have talked about some work on 6th Street, which John and I have talked, it just seems like it makes more sense to do it now, if you want to do it now, because our little bit of labor increase, I think it's still going to save you money over waiting until next year or whenever you want to do it, and people are parking all over the property as it is already, does it make more sense, especially as I'm just throwing it out there, attract a new developer to already have that work done so they can see you've got the parking on both sides and everything. I don't know, that's just.
So this is all street work, right? This is within the 6th Street. It's not anything on the parcel.
So this is essentially a mirror image of what we did on 5th Street.
6th Street, just
On 6th Street. And we had planned on eventually doing that work, so you're just saying that we have an opportunity to perhaps save on some costs.
I think so, yeah.
Do that this year.
So there would be he would come to us with some number though.
Yeah,
So,
but like John and I have talked, I think I can get the suppliers to hold their material prices. We have minor labor increase stuff, but I'm just trying to look at it from y'all's perspective.
Sure.
I think if we
Do we have an
finished it, it
estimate of
would
what
be
we thought that was
better.
gonna cost us
Correct, I have my estimate for that's $190,000
for the whole
for 6th Street. That
6th
would
Street
be the
project?
curb gutter and,
That number's likely to increase next year. I'm sure the unit cost on that will probably increase next year.
okay, it's not exactly mirror sided, however, we do not have the reverse parking.
I wondered that.
No, but
Okay.
parking, angled parking.
You're right.
So, Mr. Chairman, just backing up a little bit, the concrete work that you're going to use a new subcontractor for, that's to really protect the infrastructure that's under there that's already been invested in stormwater.
Storm chambers
reserves,
under there.
yeah.
Yes.
Reservoir. The 6th Street, though, as we've, as recently as today, meeting with potential developers for that area, and there's different designs and angles of being offered, would that potentially affect entranceways or street cuts that we may have to do? I just don't want to put this in and then have a developer come in maybe as early as this spring, starting construction, and then some of the stuff we've done is being torn back out again because it didn't fit into
We don't know for certain.
yeah, because they both indicated that they can use the infrastructure. The several developers that we've talked to will utilize the existing investment in infrastructure there. That's part of our request, obviously. So I just would be hesitant to do too much on 6th Street and then see that we've got to tear some of it out this spring.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I agree.
That's a good point, because we don't know what the final layout is going to be. We're very close to making a decision on who we want to negotiate with, and we'll know relatively soon what they're, probably going to be looking at in terms of a site layout, but we don't know that yet. So perhaps we should.
Yeah, I'm just trying to envision it is there anything that would have to be tore out? I mean, you're saying
Depending on
everything's
which way we go with proposals,
Yeah.
potentially. So,
The existing plan had a entrance off of there for
It-
future that maybe they would
it
modify.
did, but that was the previous
You
proposal.
probably don't want 3 or 4 entrances in there
Yeah,
either.
the curb cuts are the issue, it's not the asphalt, it's where it's at the curbs, right?
Yeah, the location of the curb cut is what we're talking about, so maybe it is best for us to hold off on that for now.
I think, because,
Yeah,
I hate seeing
and stuff
the
too.
infrastructure tore out that doesn't need to
Just
be.
a couple of storm inlets. We do have the one entrance already, that was.
We do have one curb cut, yeah.
Yeah, if there's another, to be another one, then of course, whatever we would do would affect the location of
Yeah.
that. And,
Yeah, perhaps we should.
Well, they've seen the design of the current plat and what we have on 5th Street. So 6th Street is still a little bit of an unknown.
It is, yeah.
All right, so Craig, I take your recommendations to hold on that then?
I think based on what the mayor and I'm getting some indication from other members of the committee,
Okay.
our commission, I think maybe it's best if we do hold off on that for now. We'll know more soon, probably on exactly what direction we're going with that. There might also be some additional infrastructure investments that need to take place as part of that as well. So perhaps doing all that at one time, there'll be some savings associated with that.
All right. So that's the sense of the commission then?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, we proceed with capping the storm trap and we'll hold on 6th Street till the future. So.
Okay.
But also, thank you, Bruce, for looking into to try to meet our budget. That's so important to get people that we like to work with that really will work to hit a number or get to a better number. So,
We try. Like I tell everybody,
Thank you.
it's all a partnership. Everybody's got to work together if you want to investment in the city, and it works for everybody. And that's the only reason why I'm saying the 6th Street work is cheaper now. It probably will be next year, but I also see what you're saying, because I know Craig and I talked once as far as future development, not putting the rest of the concrete pavement in because it might be in the wrong place.
That is a bigger issue,
Right.
probably than
That's-
this, but that's probably a good idea to hold on.
I mean, you hate not finishing a job, but at the same time, I don't see putting that
Yeah.
concrete in there. I mean,
we'll probably pick up some critics either way. So,
of course, yeah.
and some supporters, of course. Well, thank you again. So appreciate both of you.
All right.
And listen, so let me flip over to Ruth here for a minute, our consultant relative to Memorial Hospital site. I think we got a little update from last month and perhaps clarify a little confusion too. So let's-
I have a feeling, that was on me last month when I had said that we could probably, I don't remember saying it exactly this way, but I was confused about the special meeting we had last month and then the change on this date. And in my head, I was thinking that by sometime in October, we'd be able to get to a recommendation. And I apologize for any confusion I meant, but we're on the schedule that in my head, I felt that we were on. And today, reporting to the commission and to the city, we had just a terrific day interviewing 2 strong teams that each would like to be the developer on that old Memorial Hospital site. They're each strong in their separate ways. We'll continue to do our due diligence on each to understand what the implications of those proposals are, where they need to be tweaked, where they need to be adjusted. But the bottom line is that each of the teams was composed of people who care about Michigan City, who want to be there, who see what's happening here, and want to be a part of it. So We'll continue to do our work this month. We anticipate that we'd be able to give you our recommendations on a preferred team that you should go to contract negotiations with sometime, hopefully by the end of this month, but definitely by your November meeting.
And our November meeting could be as late as...
Well, we have to reschedule it due to Veterans Day.
Right.
Which we'll do at the end of this meeting.
But ideally, the commission will be making a decision on a developer in the month of November.
On the developer.
Oh, no, I think
A developer
that's,
to negotiate with.
yeah.
And then ideally, we would get into, by the first quarter, an agreement with a great developer and start construction in the spring. Is that?
Those
that
are
would
the
be
marching
that would be the
orders,
best
that's the goal.
scenario.
And, you know, it's, anyone who's done development knows that you can have breakthroughs that suddenly expedite things, and then sometimes you can hit a roadblock and it just takes forever to sort out the issues. But the goal is to work through what we believe is the sounder recommendation for a development partner this month, so that you can take action at your first meeting in November on which developer you want to proceed to contract with. How long those negotiations take, that will be up to your lawyers, you know, and that team to figure out. But the ideal that would be incorporated in the discussions is that they actually begin groundbreaking in the spring. So, and that's that's our hope, and we were working toward that. And
Go ahead. Any comments or questions for Ruth?
I would just say that today's discussions were very, very thorough, very, very good from both groups that we met with today, and I thought you did a thorough job of asking the right questions, and there's strength there from these developers and commitment. Yeah.
thank you very much for that. But there's a lot of strength in both teams. So thank you.
That's a complex decision too. This isn't an easy
It's very
decision
complex.
to make.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right, item number 10, Ohio Street updates. Rich Deal. Oh, looks like Chris Murphy. So we got you teamed up here 2 in a row. So.
Good evening, Commissioners. Rich Deal with Structure Point. Chris Murphy with Structure Point. Rich couldn't make it this evening, but he did send me a note with regard to Ohio Street. A couple of items that he's still working on. Reeve Riley is scheduled sometime this week to complete some repairs to the patching on the US 20 patch, and there are also a couple of locations along Ohio Street that they want to complete some repair work on, also to the pavement. The other item that's outstanding is the NIPSCO utility poles that have been installed. The old poles are still on site and can't be retired until there is one fiber optic cable outfit that we're still working with, trying to get them to relocate.
So NIPSCO can't take their stuff out till the fiber cable's off the pole, right? Okay.
So we're still working through that. They're not very responsive. They request reimbursement for their activity, which is not provided for because they're in the right-of-way at your privilege. So the relocation requirement is a cost that's on them. So that's why you still see the old poles in the right-of-way until we can...
To that point, Mr. Murphy, it actually was brought to my attention recently about that utility, that they're now being requested something that they had above ground would have to go underground. And it's my understanding that they had an issue with that there was limitations on the new poles that NIPSCO installed in height requirements of where they would have their utilities, and they felt being put into that circumstance So I didn't know if there's discussions going on about that, or what?
Oh, I know there are ongoing discussions, Mayor. I wasn't aware of that particular issue. I know we had discussions with regard to spacing of the
Yeah, I don't
of
know
the
all the
lines.
specs on that, but if somebody has their utility
Right.
here, you have to have so many. You
That's an
probably
electrical,
know
it's a
more
national
about
electrical
that.
code, right?
Right, that's
But I thought
correct.
there was a request to go from off the poles to now underground. And I don't know if that's accurate, but if
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
I'm not familiar with that point of discussion. I do know that we did have spacing discussions with NIPSCO when we installed the new poles out there, and were particular to the height of the poles, so it theoretically left space for all the users who would be attached to that pole. And my understanding, it did not require anybody to go from on the pole to underground.
Well, maybe there just
I will
needs to be
check on
more
that.
correspondence and communication on
Okay.
that, yeah.
Could
I'll
be an
follow up on
aesthetic
that.
question too, so I don't think we set any requirements that, from an aesthetic standpoint, we didn't want anything else hanging on the pole, so I'm not aware of that anyways.
No, and this is not a new utility, it's out there mounted to the
Yeah.
old poles, so it's just a matter of,
Relocate.
I believe that's our understanding of the issue is they're actually having a crew out there to perform the relocation from the old poles to the new poles, and then the old poles can be retired and removed.
There were also some castings we had asked to have, take a look at, and wonder what the status of that was as well.
It appeared, I drove through the project today specifically to look at the wiring still remaining on the old poles. But I also noticed that it appeared that all the castings now have a concrete collar supporting the casting, and I did not notice any particular castings that were remaining unattached or
There were also the
constructed.
ones that were adjacent to the culvert. I want to say they're on the north side of the culvert, adjacent to Harside Foods'
Okay.
current building. I think there were 3 of them, and because of the circumstance of not being placed in pavement, there was, and I guess it's not customary to tie them down necessarily to the concrete, but the cast iron castings themselves don't appear to be fastened, I guess, to the concrete. And I think Rich was looking into whether there was something we could do to tie those down a bit better since they're in grass. They're not.
Okay, I was not aware of that, Craig, and I'll check with Rich on that. Generally, the castings are of such a heavy weight that usually you don't worry about them needing to be attached, but if they're in a location where they might be susceptible to tractor lawnmowers or something of that nature adjacent to them, or possibly hitting them, maybe we need to
So I
provide
want
more
to just follow
security.
up on that and see what he was able to find.
Okay,
I know we went out and looked at that on site.
okay. I'll follow up with him.
Okay, anything else on Ohio Street? Okay, thank you. Let's cover the US 12 bridge. I see something going on out there today, so.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Lane restrictions.
Pardon?
No, it's
Okay,
Tearing up.
turn out the median.
Turn out the median, lane restrictions have begun.
good, good,
Yeah.
good to hear. On the US 12 bridge over Trail Creek, we do have the outstanding item of an aesthetic element or a symbolic element as far as the metal railing is concerned. Is probably more on my responsibility to work with Mayor Oberly, I believe, was assigned that task to spend some time to determine how, what, and the appropriate work that we should add to the contract for the contractor.
But we
Is that will
decided
be
we
a-
were able to do that as a change order, and
Yeah, and there'll be some lead time on that.
So we're not interrupting anything NDOT's doing, that's the point,
No,
right? Okay.
there'll be some lead time, but those metal railing installation is generally one of the last things that'll happen on the project. Although it will be installed on the Phase 1 side about halfway through the project, and then on the Phase 2 side at the end of the project.
So which
it's
is the
probably
Phase 1 side? Is that the south or the north?
I don't know, Tom, without the
Okay.
prices in front of me.
All right.
It's one of those.
I got that. Yeah, thank you. Gotta figure that. All right. Any other questions on US 12 or comments?
Yeah.
All right.
I do want to note that we did complete some traffic counting.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was where I was going to head to. So I know that you were looking for some information.
Yes.
So did you
And
get
we're-
that?
We're still working on that.
Okay.
With Anastasia
Okay.
on securing that. I think the problem is transferring that amount of data, and we're trying to get a
Okay.
share file set up so that we can receive that.
So I see Anastasia here. She's not her head. Have you got any issues over?
Yes, we have. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you.
And Chris, when NDOT came out with the bulletin on the median removal, it was like a week ago, we got it out to everybody. How long is that supposed to last? Because we were kind of under the understanding that that work wasn't going to start until into 2020.
Hey,
It was kind of all of a sudden from...
Yes, I'm kind of surprised that you noted that they were starting to actually remove the median.
Yeah.
Because
They definitely were out there, and they've made one-lane restrictions in both directions,
okay,
too.
I will follow up with NDOT on that. It was my understanding that they were scheduled to start as soon as the weather allowed them in the spring of 2020, so that all the work can be
Yeah,
completed
so
in
we just
one.
wanted to, we know that our
construction
partners in Blue Chip
season.
were pretty adamant about trying to get that done in
Correct.
2020. And all of a sudden, we were taken by surprise when they said, oh, by the way, we're starting the project in October. And, well, they've started.
And I guess as we look at the Highway 20 paving projects, it's good that they're starting early
Mhm.
because they've started very late on
Yes.
some others. So,
And that,
Maybe it's
I'll
not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll check with NDOT, but that may be part of the contractor's schedule in completing all the work in the 2020 construction season, is he needs to get started at the end of 2019.
Okay.
But
I
will
guess the
follow
big
up
question
and-
is, how long is the lane going to be blocked? Is that going to be a
Intermittently,
winter?
probably from now
Good
to the
question.
end of the project,
Wow.
except for maybe winter months.
Right. But it would be my preference, and I believe the community's preference, that as work slows down over the winter months, that if at all possible, open all the lanes
Now,
up.
clear the rubble out and just make sure there's not a dip or
Right,
something.
that's right. To protect any ongoing construction activity, but keep as many lanes open to traffic as possible when there's no work being accomplished out there.
Right. Yeah, worst thing would be just sit there all winter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
All right, any other comments, questions? All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, let's see, do we want to, 709 Franklin Street, is that,
Yeah, just real quick, I spoke
Right.
with Stephen Travis about that as well, from Americo Engineering. The only remaining item that needs to be dealt with, and I just need to follow up with them to find out about the status of this, was there was an issue with the sidewalk subsiding a little bit along some of that frontage along 709 Franklin. And I know they were looking into trying to take up with the contractor how we're going to remedy that. So I think that's the only remaining item there.
all right, any other questions for Craig on that? All right, Village Road, paving update, Global Engineering, and also request from the Sanitary District.
Good evening, Commissioners. Martin Bocek, Global Engineering. Just a quick update for Village Road. We had a pre-con meeting on October 1st. We anticipate construction to start next week. I'm still waiting on contracts, bonds, and insurance to come in before they do
How
begin that
long do we
work.
anticipate that project is going to take?
So it's November 15th is substantial completion for this year's portion. And then there's about another half of the project to be finished in 2020 spring, May. So, and that portion of that work is overlaying Haas's drainage project in that neighborhood. So after that work is completed this winter, Reith Riley's crews can come in and begin their work on that section.
Okay, so we have an additional funding request on tonight's agenda for additional work that was an alternate to the awarded contract. request for funding to the redevelopment commission. The question I have is how does or would that additional work affect the paving that you're going to be doing this fall?
John Gorska is here to discuss the alternates that you're bringing up right now. I'm not really sure which alternate is being discussed at this time. I know that I believe it's alternate. Ryan, is the alternate A that's overlapping? Okay, yeah.
John Gorsica with the Sanitary District. The initial project funding was $950,000, $210,000 to Haas and Associates for design, bidding, and administration fee, which left us basically $740,000. Bids came in. D&M Excavating came in at $695,000. So that left us with $45,000 left over. Alternative A was $113,000. So the Sanitary District is asking for an additional, we need $70,000 for additional to do Alternative A. But the Sanitary District is asking for $50,000. And
alternate A, can you explain what alternate A is? Is it? I guess what I'm getting at.
Alternate A is the portion of Village Road in between Ohio Street and 600 foot east of Crestwood. It's adding stormwater improvements in that area.
Okay.
And that's,
so the paving that you would be covering that area then would be in the spring.
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering.
Okay,
That's what I wanted to get to was, I just want to make sure the work that's done this fall
Doesn't get cut
is east of that
Right.
and doesn't tear up what's going to be
We
done.
coordinated
as
with
part of
Haas.
the stormwater project.
Right.
Okay,
We
that's what I
coordinated with
wanted
Haas
to
on
know.
that, and there's a cutoff line that's established.
Okay.
So
That's all I wanted to
our
know.
project limits
Just
this year
wanna
will
make sure we're
not
tearing work
overlap.
up that we put in this fall.
So and I think the other piece for discussion by the commission is that we'd allocated the $950 for this as part of the bonding process,
proceeds.
right? Bond proceeds. And the request is because it makes good financial sense for us to do this additional work in order to improve the stormwater situation in that area while our contractors are out there. We're getting ready to repave the road to button this project up, and that's why I'm going to characterize it as a modest request of another $50,000 from the Redevelopment Commission to cover that.
From South TIF funds.
From the South TIF fund. Now, that all said, next year I think we all want to go through a whole different process on this paving stuff. But so that's the request in front of us for an additional $50,000. And I assume you're in favor of that?
I would recommend it in favor of that, given now I have a better understanding of where that's located and that it doesn't disrupt anything. I think it makes sense. It will alleviate, from what I understand from previous conversations, it will alleviate the potential for some ponding that could occur, or has been occurring as well, but could also occur in addition based on the paving project not being done in that area. So this would improve the crest of the roadway surface to allow for better drainage flow, as well as the additional infrastructure that we put in to improve drainage. So
I guess, let me start with questions from other commissioners or. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
Move for approval of the additional $50,000 for the drainage project on Village.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So, tell Mr. Cuss we appreciate his $15,000. So. All right. I guess then we have, you said Franklin Street paving? Is that you also, Martin? Thank you.
Yeah, Franklin Street's work has begun. We're doing removals and concrete right now. Paving should be starting early next week.
And this is from what area to area?
So this is the Franklin Street project from US 20 to Valentine Court.
Okay, nice. All right. Any questions?
Yes,
Karen?
it was brought to our attention that they're carrying out, the ADA intersection intersections and redoing them.
Right.
I don't know if many people understand that the ADA compliance laws change every so many years. So there was a
Right.
question of why are we changing out some of those ramps and stuff. And so to that point, there has been changes in the ADA laws
Right.
since that was last installed.
Right, I believe that ProWag is the governing body on that, and they released new updates in 2018.
Yeah.
So the last time that Franklin Street was done was before those recent updates. And then that is enforcing those now, so.
Yeah, there's some folks that were questioning why that's being taken out and that we were making some less than foolish mistakes by doing this, but we are staying in compliance with the ADA laws and that they don't have the understanding.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Questions or comments? We're good to go on that. And then do you want to hit Pine and Ninth?
Well, yeah, 11th Street, I have a quick
Let's
update for
first,
that.
excuse me.
I'll do Pine and Ninth.
Okay, thank you.
11th Street, just Marquis Electric will be on site this week to install the piece that we discussed earlier to fix the lettering.
Okay. So we should be able to wrap that up by the next redevelopment commission meeting and take that off the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you
Any
very
other
much.
questions for Martin? All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for Teresa for correcting me. So Pine and Ninth?
I have a quick update. I received an email from Tom Wyman this afternoon, who's the project manager on behalf of Haas and Associates, saying the project has not yet begun because we're waiting for a response from Reith Riley for a pre-construction meeting on the project. And so there's no progress to report at this time other than that they're waiting that word from ReithRiley as to when the project can start. So just so you're aware, that's what's going on.
So we still make it this construction season without
We
weather
hope, but
cost or something?
this is not the first time we're waiting on Reith Riley at the end of the season, so we'll see if they deliver or not.
Okay. Question of Pine and Ninth? Think we're good? All right, Von Tobel wetland proposal, Haas and Associates.
I can also cover that one if you want. So you received a copy of the proposal. We are overall kind of working with Haas and Associates on coordinating kind of an overall effort to look at the management of the, what we're calling Von Tobel wetland proposal, or wetland area. The first part of that is to assess to do a little bit further assessment of the condition of the property from an ecological standpoint. We have worked in the past with Mark O'Leary, who was previously with another company, but actually was previously with Applied Ecological Services, but with another company when we did the assessment on the what we call the Bismarck Hill portion of the Washington Park property. So we asked him to come back and give us a proposal for assessing the ecological condition of the Von Tobel wetland parcel. And so you have before you a proposal that basically would include an assessment of the entire 20.7 acre parcel that would take a look at things like the existence of invasive species, areas where improvements could be made to the wetland for it to function better. And the only change to this document that I would ask, we can go ahead and approve, I think, this for signature tonight. The only change would be there's a reference to, I'm looking for the reference now, but there's a reference to turning this, a copy of this over to
Shirley
Hines Land Trust. But I think we just want to change that to read an ecological ecological organization. Just so we don't limit ourselves only to the trust. We are working with the Shirley Hines Land Trust. We are currently in communications with them. Those conversations are going well. But just so we don't limit ourselves, I'm going to ask Mr. O'Leary to change the first page to reflect that on the paragraph where it says we understand the RDC is interested in discussing the potential of giving the property to the Shirley Hines Land Trust, just to an environmental and ecological organization. But aside from that, Timing is of the essence, given the time of the year, and AES has indicated that they're able to begin the work tomorrow, should it be approved this evening. And I would like to request approval of this this evening in an amount not to exceed $11,500 to conduct tasks 1 through 4 as listed in the proposal, so that we can get this work going, and we can have further conversations with both Haas and Associates and potentially Shirley Hines Land Trust and others in terms of the initially, especially the management of the property, so that it's properly managed.
And so this is to get something really going in this next spring, correct? On
That's the hope.
restoration.
That's the hope.
And so this is a forward planning process for
Well, and ongoing
preservation.
conversations with the land trust to see if they're interested in helping us with the management of that. So I would request that approval.
Craig, also, can they correct the spellings? Because instead of Von Tobel, they have Van throughout the whole,
Oh, yeah,
That hurts.
that's through the whole process.
all right, sure.
All right, so this is part of our, preservation and restoration is also part of economic.
It's always been
and keeping green space.
Yeah, it's always been our intention to
Obvious.
require this parcel to do this.
Right.
We're just at a point now where we need this to be done so that we can take advantage of the weather that we still currently have and the timing needed by the consultant to complete
If
this.
there's no further questions, then what's the pleasure of the commission?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. So, Mr. Cernick, is there anything we have to do on a contract for this or anything, or?
I think you just approved the contract. I'm just looking at standard conditions and terms. If there's some modifications, nothing sticks out. I always look for the little things that are the usual things in there, but I don't see those in this one, so we should be okay with it.
So after your approval, then I have the potential to sign this and given tonight's actions.
You can, or you can, well, I got a free morning. Let me look at it tomorrow morning and I'll get with you.
Okay, well, so do we need to back up and say they approve
No,
this?
I need this approved so that we can, if we need to make modifications.
Well, I don't want to have a meeting
adjust
next
them.
month. I want to get it clear tonight, so,
But
right?
in order to get the work done, we need
Yeah.
to just change the front page to reflect that. And
And if I have any specific terms, I'll just give me somebody, I'll call you tomorrow and let you know.
yeah, and Mark's contact, I'll forward you the
Yeah.
email so you have his contact information.
Okay.
All right, so everybody's cool with that? I'll be signing the contract subject to Alan's review before our next meeting, so. All right. Anything else on that? All right, thank you. Change order, August Mac, Mr. Cernick.
Okay. Back on August 17th, I sent you a copy, or I sent you a request for change order number 8 for work being done by August Mac with respect to both participation in the mediation that was scheduled for August 19th, and then if that did not succeed, then actual work and testimony they would have to proceed with as an expert witness in our case, including at that point, the next immediate thing that was on the agenda was the depositions, or participation of deposition and preparation for that. The total cost of that was going to be $19,600. So it was anticipated that we would approve that during the September meeting. However, as you know, we reached an agreement at the August 19th mediation. They actually signed off on the 21st. So, as they all say about making assumptions, I made one of those, and now I'm sitting here trying to make amends for that. I thought they would give us a different change order number 8 to both include the work that they were doing in preparation for the mediation, as well as work that they would be doing towards assisting in making sure that we had the proper terminology for the final agreement that would be presented to you. That assumption was incorrect. So the reason why I brought this up during the claims part is that without approving change order 8, we don't have enough money to approve their request for the $14,000. Well, we have, their request was for, in the claims form, the 29,078. However, we only have enough money in there to pay for, I believe it's $14,343.52. So, as we always do with August MAC contracts and many of our other vendors, we always do it from a viewpoint of not to exceed. So we can do one of two things on this one. We can approve change order number 8 in the amount of 19,000, or not to exceed 19,600, knowing full well it's going to be $14,343.52. And that would then allow us to approve the claim of $29,078.84, which you held off on before at my request. So that's the amount we covered that. The other thing we can, in which case then I would get them to do an amended change order 8 to reflect that dollar amount. The other thing we can do is we can approve this as change order 8 as written, not to exceed $19,600, which does allow us to pay for the claim request being made. And as you may recall from our meeting in September, we did approve them to do the environmental work on the station block project, in which case then the carryover of the $4,864.68 would just be applied to the work on that. So it's either one or the other in terms of how you want to handle that, but we do need to do something, otherwise we can't approve their claim request.
And just to review, the AuxMac work was done to allow us to proceed with a claim against the Begley
Corporation.
The Begley Corporation,
Right,
which we were awarded.
Right. And I will say, I'm participating in that mediation on the 19th of August. There were several conversations with the folks from August Mac and Michael Cuss in terms of different types of remedies that we could do to just do the contamination cleanup on those Trail Creek properties. So they were very instrumental in that mediation, and continue to be instrumental both in the drafting of the agreement as it relates to the mediation is called a term sheet. We've reached agreement to have an agreement on all litigation. That's really where we are at this point. We are still fine-tuning the actual agreement, again with August Mac's assistance, for the actual agreement that we will have, resolving all matters related to the Trail Creek litigation. So that's kind of where we are, but we need to do something here.
Okay, so let me, just a couple of questions. So, to be clear for the record, I question whether we wouldn't be better off to just approve the $14,342 and close out that work, rather than keep an ongoing open account with August Mag to be more or less a down payment on their station block work of your $4,800. Is that, I don't know, Debbie, does that make it simpler for you, or?
No.
No? Okay.
And because, what Debbie keeps track of, which is how I know that we ran out of money, or we ran out of the $14,000, was because of the fact she's just keeping a running total of what our work is in our agreements, our contracts and change order with August Mac. What we've approved, and what we've approved is the expert testimony for the litigation, the work they've done with the vapor intrusion, the actual assessment being done on those properties, the various models that they've run both prior to, I guess probably the initial work that they did when we retained them as expert witnesses, to other types of models that they've run during the course and based on the arguments being made by Begley, all of which are subject and going to be captured in the final amount we agree on with Begley and their insured, and then falls on the category of expenditures already made, and then money left over for the actual contamination cleanup. But the way that Debbie has been doing that, and the way that I'm used to it, is basically, here's what the initial amount was, here's the change order amount, here's the approved claims amount. And that makes sense not only from our viewpoint, but more importantly, it makes sense to the State Board of Accounts, because that's really all they care about, is here's what the approval was,
right,
and here's what the payments were. So as we sit here right now, we've approved X amount, and the claim is for this amount, which is why we need to do something tonight.
Right, so is there any Begley contamination potential at the station site?
Yes.
There is. So it is still related to...
Yes, there is.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. At least having the overlap of the August Mac work on multiple properties. It's still all August Mac. It's all related to the Begley plume.
Right.
So.
We have
all
that
right.
one contaminated site that we're gonna meet with IDEM and NICD in 2 or 3 weeks
Yeah.
in Indianapolis. So, yeah, yes, they are involved
Okay,
in
so,
that.
all right, so, all right,
So-
that helps me.
Different plumes, but.
Different plumes.
Yeah, different tools, but it's still the same
Yeah.
entity
Different
we're
stores.
going after,
Yeah.
right? So, all right, so, all right, so I'm assuming your recommendation is to approve the
The
19,600.
not to exceed.
Because then it lines up with what we have in front of us for the evening.
And then, that's right, and then we also know that it allows us to pay that money, we're still gonna have a reserve, and we're gonna be applying that then to
The next thing they do for us.
when they submit the claim for the phase 1 of the station block properties, which
Okay.
they've already started working on, so.
All right, any more questions from Mr. Cernak? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve the $19,600 not to exceed for this project.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on down, we're at item 19, report by legal counsel.
This was the August Mac thing, 2 other things to report on. I thought I would have the final statement, or the final agreement to act on tonight for the Trail Creek litigation. I do not. Everything else when dealing with Begley has been a struggle. I don't know why this should be any different. But we are really just looking at different fine points as the thing that we just talked about, is the fact that keeping this litigation, this contamination site separate from all the other Begley contamination sites in the city, that's been an issue. Where we're at now is actual final wording as it relates to what exactly are they covering. So it's highly technical, it's highly specific. Quite frankly, I just don't think it needs to be there, but regardless, that's what they are insisting on. So I would hope that we will have all those issues resolved. The latest thing we looked at, was it a week? Yeah, last week. We proposed a remedy to the issue that they raised, and we're in response to what they're proposing. It's now back in their ballpark, and we're just waiting to hear back from them in the final. But hopefully, we'll have that resolved in very short order. That's on that. The other thing with regards to Bozak, I talked with Kevin earlier today. If you look out on Highway 20, you'll see Bozak is going up. The new building is there. The steel structures are in place. Concrete is being laid. So that project is moving along pretty well. And then finally, on the just to mention that there was an issue a while back with some of these properties that we had, and the controller's office receiving notices for that we had to pay property taxes, and we had made specific language within all these acquisitions for we weren't responsible for them, that the former property owners were responsible for it at the time, and slowly but surely we were getting those things resolved to the way that we had said from the very beginning, and we have nothing, at least at this point, to worry about any of those properties being put up for tax sales that we own and keep.
Right, and we're not liable for pre-taxes on those.
And we are a tax exempt entity as a governmental entity, so. So there, that's my report.
And on the August MAC, I mean, this is money well spent to make sure that we hold Begley or others accountable for their previous actions.
That's correct, yes.
Right. Okay. All right, report by director.
Okay, I only have one thing to report. Mayor and I can kind of tag team this. Again, you can add to this as well. But just this past week, pleased to report that the City Redevelopment Commission have had some positive conversations with the owner of Marquette Mall regarding some possible opportunities for redevelopment of portions of that site. As our previous discussions had indicated, that we had kind of set aside a certain amount of money for assisting with demolition redevelopment of the property, and we will be looking at revisiting the work that was previously done as part of the South Franklin Street 421 corridor study to basically update, I think, the work that was done specifically for the Marquette Mall property, and looking at some options in terms of what uses and possible layouts would be for redevelopment of portions of that site. So we had some meetings with the owner that included kind of him listing the things that he wanted to keep on the property and areas that could be up for redevelopment of the property, and and a couple of areas that we need to do some further assessment on the viability of reuse of the sections of the property. So we always get asked about Marquette Mall, and we've been working for years on hopefully looking at redeveloping that property. And the meetings last week, I think we plan on making some moves forward on doing some further assessment of that, and I will hopefully be coming to the commission with a proposal for revisiting that document, those portions of the document that we previously did, so we can update some of that information and look at the feasibility of a few specific uses on that site. So you want to add to that, Mayor?
Just, a month ago, Mr. Cam Mateen reached out to me out of the blue. I just got a call from him. We had exchanged cell phone numbers, I think, 3 years ago when we met last. And so he wanted to meet. And so I met with him about an hour before the whole team got there. I think we probably spent 2 to 3 hours there that day. I thought they were very productive conversations. He has some ideas, we have some ideas, and that's where we need, like, as we look at our south side plan of possible alteration, there's potential of portions being demolished and redeveloped in a variety of ways. I thought they were good conversations. I don't think, and he was very frank with us about, he didn't care about our conversations being confidential. He wants to do something, which that was great news. And also to the fact that he didn't quite totally understand how the TIF was moving them into the South TIF. I think he had concerns that he didn't want a 3 to 4 year process, and neither do we. That he had some bad experiences with redevelopments and TIFs in other states. Yeah, but we certainly want to move fast too if we can. And just some other things around town that he was very interested in. Didn't know a lot about double tracking, but he could see how it could have a potential impact on what he may want to do. And then, like you say, he told us what he's interested in that's successful up more towards the Franklin Street corridor of leaving in place.
Yeah, so we're looking at potentially
mixed use and
retrofit, maybe giving a facelift to what's there now that's successful along Franklin Street, and perhaps looking at demolition of other sections of the mall that are currently closed, as well as potential reuse of one section of the mall, and looking at the introduction of, among other things, looking at what's feasible from in terms of providing various housing opportunities in the city on that site. And other uses potentially.
We squeezed a lot of conversation in 2.5 hours, let's put it that way.
It was definitely intense.
But it's going to lead to, I think, the city, like I said, revisiting some of the work that we've previously done, and most likely partnering with Mr. Mateen in some way to conduct that analysis. And so we'll have a lot more to report, I think, at our November meeting.
Right, so Craig, you might refer people, I believe the South Side Gateway plan is on the website.
Yes.
And if people want to see the previous 3 concepts that were laid out, that's available to look at.
So we're talking about a refinement of those concepts.
Exactly. So it would be
based on
pulling back in our
that we have with Mr. Mateen.
Consultant that worked this last time and have them freshen those up so they're current.
And those were done from a more global standpoint in terms of the overall corridor and what we typically see as industry trends. What we're talking about is actually involving Mr. Mateen directly in the conversations specific to the Marquette Mall property. He has since also sold off some portions of the mall property previously, and so that's going to factor in as well. And then there's obviously the portion that's owned by Sears Holdings Corporation that is a question mark as well. So there could be an opportunity to work with not only Mr. Mateen, but potentially other property owners on this. But just we wanted to definitely report that we've had some serious conversations with the mall owner.
So step 1 would probably just push back if you disagree with more or less us working with Mr. Mateen on a concept in terms of we'd want to pursue. And the next step would probably be some market studies relative to whether that concept could actually work in the marketplace. And the third step would likely be, well, what would it cost to actually do that?
Right.
And maybe the fourth step is, what would his contribution be versus the city's contribution to actually make the thing happen on some timely basis.
Right.
That makes sense for.
And as I stated before, we have been kind of holding a certain number of dollars in our South TIF funds for the redevelopment of Marquette Mall, and so we'd be working with our financial advisors at Baker Tilly also to make sure that we're doing that
Exactly.
as effectively as possible.
Right. All right, anything else? Other questions for our director? All right, let's move on to the public comment portion. I would like to just, again, with the support of my fellow commissioners, use the same guidelines we had last month relative to, being focused on the Redevelopment Commission issues or stuff that the Redevelopment Commission is responsible for, no personal attacks, and I'll be 3 minutes and concise. So I see the President of our City Council available to comment. And Mr. Przybylski, if you would address us, we'd love it.
Okay, thank you very much. Name Don Przybylski, President of Michigan City Council, address 215 Gardena Street. And the issue that I'd like to present to the board, I've already talked to Mr. Phillips about it, spoke to the mayor about it, and that is the Redevelopment Commission has done great work down in Washington Park with the renovation of the greenhouse, fire and ice, the Rotary Castle, the feline house. I know you just got done appropriating money for that. But I think there's a bigger need down in Veterans Alley in Washington Park that I believe the Redevelopment Commission should seriously take a look at in assisting the city in getting this corrected. And that is the playground equipment that is in the park. That playground equipment is, I don't know, 40 years old, 50 years old. It's not ADA compliant, and it's unsafe, and it's out of compliance by any, professional recommendations or rulings that are out in the, out in the public or out in the marketplace. And I would hopefully, and I'm asking the Redevelopment Commission to take a look at it and fund replacing this equipment. We've spent $900,000 on a greenhouse. We've spent millions down in the park, but yet we haven't looked at that. And whenever we brought it up in public forums and we talk about that, the heads that are shaking, yes, we need that. Down in Washington Park, there are a lot of heads that are going like this. So I would really, hopefully, that the board would consider funding whatever the cost of the equipment is. I know we have millions of dollars that we spend on a lot of projects, and what's more fruitful than having safe playground equipment for children to play on. Washington Park, as we all know, is the biggest park in the city. It draws thousands of people every summer. People from out of town come to Washington Park. When you go down to Fetters Alley, there's thousands of people down there all summer long that come from out of town, and Michigan City is better than what we have to offer what's down there right now. Those swings are probably 40 years old. I remember swinging on swings like that when I'd go to Ames Field when I was a kid. And I don't need to pound the issue, because everyone here, if you just take a ride down there and just stop and look, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I would appreciate if the Redevelopment Commission takes a serious look at that and would fund that next spring, and we could get that put into place and get it taken care of.
So let me address
Thank
that.
you.
I have taken that seriously. I have had conversations with the park director and assistant park director. The issue is that we need to take a look at our finances in terms of what we have available in the North TIF to be able to do a project like that. And the question also came from the Parks Department is, I assume we're talking about a request for funding, what was called for in the Washington Park Master Plan, and not just a replacement of the playground equipment that's there now. So there needs to be a conversation about that. Bottom line, though, is a question of our finances, and so majority of our North TIF finances are committed. So we just need to take a look at what's available to us. Now, we did obviously just receive the settlement for the Begley matter, which reimburses us for the money spent, partially reimburses us for the money spent on the vapor intrusion testing, which was to the tune of probably about $500,000. But we need to take a look at our finances carefully and determine whether our situation is for next year. We'll get another distribution of funds likely in December, and we're going to begin the process of having, as we do every year, having Baker Tilly and do an analysis of our cash flow and our funding for projects, and so it's all going to depend on that. So
keep in mind also, and this is the problem we always get into with redevelopment, and we can't use redevelopment money simply as a thing of replacing equipment with new equipment. So that part, it's like we just can't do that. However,
that is correct, and so that's why I asked about the destination playground.
Right.
If it's feasible for us, so the answer to can we replace equipment on the playground? No, we can't.
But
if we can take a look at the destination playground as an option that was called for in the Washington Park Master Plan, because that is an admissible or permissible
thing for
use of TIF funds. So
sure.
the question is going to be what the current estimates are from the Parks Department on that playground, and where that fits into the overall scheme.
So several points. Council President Przyblinski has had this discussion with me several times. I've obviously talked to Superintendent Keenitz and Shannon about this. As you talked about a destination park, we're talking as much as I've heard numbers from $750,000 to $1 million. And one of the things I will point out is that after this season, I've already directed Jeremy to pull out the existing playground equipment, anything that he feels is unsafe or not up to compliance. So he's already been directed to do that as soon as he can free up maintenance to do that. But that's a big spend. And as I look at the conditions of roads and sidewalks that we repeatedly hear about, that some are in the TIF district, we also have to look at Lot 1 and paving of the lots and things down there. There's a lot for kids to do when they go to the beach already. You have the zoo, you have the splash pad, you have the park itself, do we look at the playground? I think we can assess this, but $1 million, as we look at the other needs throughout our North TIF, and some other issues that we know are on the horizon in the North TIF that we're working on, we have to evaluate that. But those discussions are occurring, and that's my job to prioritize. And sometimes, whether it be $1 million towards playground equipment or $1 million worth of needed infrastructure in the North TIF, could be the deciding factor. But I would hope we could do something to replace the outdated equipment. And let's not forget that there are other parks that are in our TIF district that are neighborhood parks that there are requests for. So,
but just to be clear, the limitation is we can't just replace
playground equipment. I got it. It's got to be different.
We've got to make a determination that there's an economic development benefit for the action being taken. Sure. And if it's ultimately, we partner with somebody to ultimately do the destination playground portion of the Washington Park Master Plan, that could be an appropriate use of TIF funds, just so we're clear.
And to repave Lot 1, Lot 2, and a lot of that area, we're talking of a significant amount of money.
Right. So if we need to have you leave here with information tonight that we cannot use the TIF dollars to just replace the equipment that's there now. You can't maintain or replace existing.
It would have to be a whole different type of playground
concept. Much the same as other cities have creative structures that have, they're climbing structures, or the point is that they're designed to bring everybody to that, to that location. That it's something you can't otherwise enjoy in other parts of the city, and it brings additional economic activity to the site.
Right, so
are you saying in a direction that it would have to be like a Gardena playground?
It has to be more. It has to be something more than that.
Okay.
It actually has to be. So the Washington Park Master Plan that was done by the city in 2016, I think it was, 17 maybe. It called for a specific type of playground in Washington Park. It could potentially be used for something like that. but not the replacement of existing infrastructure.
These are pretty elaborate themed, almost,
Themed playground.
like a,
Yeah,
yeah.
themed playground.
And that's where the cost comes in, of when you start talking about $700,000, $800,000. Is simple playground equipment, making it 80 compliant, you know, you probably could do something for a couple $100,000. So maybe that's something we look at Void Development to do something simpler and safe down there. Or do you go all out and, you know?
Well, yeah, and I'm not looking at, you know, there's a partnership between the city council, and the redevelopment commission, the city council, the redevelopment commission, you know, and we take riverboat funds.
No.
I don't think there's any objection to that. I'm just trying to find a path,
Yeah,
an equitable path for everybody to take so we can replace this equipment and make Washington Park look like the park we want it to look like.
I think a lot of nodding heads here. It's. I agree. And I would love to find a way to move the discussion off the dime. Is that how do we pursue any?
We have lots on our plate, and so with all due respect,
I
mean, it's not like, you know, this is the only thing that's going on. So it takes a conversation with the mayor, with the Parks Department, and us to determine whether or not what's called for in the Washington Park Master Plan is a priority for the Redevelopment Commission to help, you know, either fund or help fund, and that's what it would take.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, no, go ahead, Don.
Fair enough. So is that
And it already has begun. So, I
So
mean,
is this more of
obviously,
a-
you've talked
is
to the
this more
Parks
of a-
Department, I've talked with the Parks Department. It's a matter of what the cost of that is, and whether that's something that's done over the course of, 1 or 2 years, or it's, multiple funding sources, or something like that, but.
Yeah. So and that's.
So I think that's all we can really say at this point.
Well, right. So is this the discussion? Is that a first quarter discussion?
Maybe.
Something
Because
like
we'll know
that.
more
Something
about our
in that
finances
time
at that
frame.
point.
Definitely.
So I'm trying to put stuff in
It's a
approximate
conversation.
calendar. or
It's a
something.
conversation for after we get our next assessment of our finances from Baker Tilly.
Okay.
Okay.
Good enough.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, but I just wanted to bring that and let all
Thanks for bringing it
the
forward, Don.
commission members realize what, not only myself, but there's other council members that are
Oh, yes.
pushing us forward, so thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Other comments from the public? Comments from the public? Seeing no other comments from the public, any comments from commissioners? I note that our next meeting date's going to have to be changed from November 11th. I'm assuming we might do something the Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe that week, if Deb could kind of poll the commissioners relative to a good day.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week. The week of the 11th, because the 11th is Veterans Day. Probably not preferable to do it the week prior. And that's led to some confusion recently of having it prior. So,
All right.
The 18th you don't want to do, and then, or what about the day after as well?
Well, I was going to suggest to poll the members, but the mayor, you're probably the most challenging thing, so if the 12th works,
I have a meeting in Long Beach at 7 o'clock that night.
I will be out of here by then.
on the 12th.
If attorneys weren't dragging out the meeting, we'd be out of here. That's really
The
something.
18th.
Mayor's also suggesting the 18th, just to move it to the following week.
Works for me.
Well, either one of those I could do at this point, so. Deb, why don't you just poll everybody for the 12th and the 18th, and we'll see how that works.
The 12th isn't great for me.
Oh, 12th isn't, all right, so.
But
Yeah. The 18th works for me.
Let's target the 18th then. That'll give us some time for reviewing some of these other projects. If that's, I'm saying most people think that's pretty good, so. Okay. Any other business for the commission this evening? Well, I'll just add again my thanks for everyone's participation. We've got a lot of great things going here and a lot of genuine people that are working really hard to make this a phenomenal place. So thank you all. Looking forward to your future participation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right, we're moved. We're adjourned. Thank you.